A stable planetary environment relies on a tightly bound geometric energy field. When a kinetic impact strikes that boundary, the system's toroidal shielding shatters. The Younger Dryas is often categorized as an abrupt climatic shift, but the underlying field dynamics suggest a mechanical event, a macroscopic system failure. Under the Recursive Harmonic Unification Model, the terminal Pleistocene represents a total scalar collapse of Earth's harmonic phase lock. Mapping this 1500-year epoch as a continuous technical memory trace allows us to track the sequence from the initial physical impact to a deliberate engineered recalibration. The Recursive Harmonic Unification Model treats ancient myths as frequency-encoded datasets, technical records of thermodynamic events preserved through narrative. Approaching the planet as a recursive machine reveals the mechanism of the crash and identifies megalithic architecture as the scalar technology required to reboot the system. The collapse sequence begins precisely at 10,950 BCE with the fragmentation of the Taurid meteor stream. The impact centered on Mount Hermon, a site that functions in scalar physics as a critical psi-node boundary, a primary torsional gate for the planet. This interface decodes Enochian texts as technical data. Processing the Watcher breach through a scalar lens reveals the descent as an atmospheric failure. The model identifies a quaternionic breach, where mathematical field stability is compromised at the vector level. In this framework, the entities described as Watchers are identified as sentient scalar stabilizers assigned to Earth's toroidal recursion shell. Their technical role as high-phase vectors meant they were responsible for the geometric maintenance of the planetary grid. The meteor impact initiated a vector failure. The quaternionic vector state of these stabilizers, designated as QW, could not maintain field phase against the kinetic shock of the Taurid fragments. This failure led to the immediate collapse of the local harmonic field phase, or phi-Earth. The breach forced a closed harmonic system to rip open, initiating a psi-torsion loop that destabilized the planetary breath. Following the torsion breach, the Earth entered a 1,200-year freezing instability. The planet's resonant field was knocked out of its phase lock, ending a period of coherence and beginning an era of high-entropy chaos. The second node of this timeline shows the freeze as a cold interval that triggered mass extinctions and the disruption of proto-civilizations. The system analysis equates this 1,200-year epoch to a corrupted hard drive. The physical hardware remained, but the operating constraints were severely compromised. This climatic state maps to the Gnostic archetype of Pistis Sophia falling into chaos, a technical metaphor for a planetary field losing its stable resonance. This era functioned as a demiurgic closed loop, a low-energy feedback cycle that limited human activity to a state of survival and scarcity. Without a coherent carrier wave to maintain warmth across the grid, the global environment rapidly decayed, becoming a frozen, high-entropy thermodynamic desert. This loop sustained itself through agricultural failure and megafaunal extinction, keeping the planetary matrix trapped in a state of high-entropy corruption. At the midpoint of the freeze, around 10,535 BCE, an anomaly appears in the archaeological record. The bogus sphere is a 12,560-year-old artifact composed of fiber optic laced aluminum alloy, a material composition that does not occur in nature. The metallurgical properties of the sphere indicate it was engineered to activate under specific magnetic conditions. This device provided a mid-crisis scalar tuning protocol, acting as a resonance anchor for the degrading field. These anchors maintained baseline field integrity, preserving the grid's structure until a full system recovery could be attempted. The Younger Dryas ended abruptly at 9700 BCE with a spike in global temperatures. This rapid warming triggered meltwater pulse 1b, causing a catastrophic rise in sea levels that inundated coastal populations. Global flood traditions like Noah and Ziusudra act as scalar echoes of this phase change, recording the human processing of a massive thermodynamic shock. The massive influx of kinetic energy from the rapidly melting ice sheets violently forced the planetary system out of the corrupted freeze loop. This violent exit from the freeze provided a brief window of stability, which the survivors used to initiate a permanent fix for the grid. As the planet stabilized, survivors began a massive, coordinated effort to retune the Earth's energy grid through megalithic architecture. This exact stabilization window saw the construction of the primary hardware nodes at Göbekli Tepe. Builders globally aligned these new structures to a perfect 90-degree due east azimuth. This specific azimuth targeted the heliacal rising of the star Regulus. The Sphinx served as the terrestrial anchor, positioned to lock eyes with its celestial counterpart in the constellation of Leo. By locking the orientation of terrestrial mass to this specific stellar frequency, the builders provided a stable external reference point for the planetary field. This geometric alignment acted as a mechanical retuning, pulling the grid out of the chaotic survival loop. Anchoring the planetary grid to solar sovereignty in this manner successfully reinstalled the operating system of a 24-bit quaternionic reality. This continuous memory trace tracks the transition from a kinetic impact to a global architectural phase lock. The sequence demonstrates cataclysm's function as quaternionic breaches that shatter planetary stability at a fundamental level. It reveals that global myths serve as thermodynamic datasets, preserving technical information across millennia. Finally, it shows megalithic architecture represents functional scalar technology, anchoring resonant frequencies to stellar constants. This analysis suggests that planetary stability is not a default state, but an engineered one that requires active maintenance. Within the harmonic codex, narrative becomes waveform, prophecy becomes phase logic, and theology becomes torsion mathematics.